what you're thinking. We will go down.
It's hour 3 of the Jeff Santos Show.
I can feel us sinking.
772-925-8206, the phone number to join us. Mark Taylor-Canfield will join us at about 34 minutes past. We'll get an update on the Washington caucus, and of course some of the other states voting on Saturday as well, with our great friend based in Seattle. 34 minutes past the hour on a Foo Fighters Friday. For those of you who don't know the career of our next of the Foo Fighters drummer, Mr. Dave Grohl, he of course started in the great city of Seattle with the band Nirvana, which is where we're going to go right now. We usually talk to our next guest on Tuesdays at 3:30, but with tomorrow's huge, and I mean huge, New York huge caucus in Washington State, where Bernie Sanders has to do well and has to win by a good number of votes. We're going to talk to Mark Taylor-Canfield, great independent journalist out there on Twitter. Catch him, he tweets with us quite a bit at Jeff Santos Show, and of course you can catch him on Daily Kos and a lot of other places. Great to have Mark with us on a Friday. Happy Friday. Mark, how are you?
Good, Jeff. Looks like the big game in town today in Seattle is not the Mariners or the Seahawks, but Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party nomination process, because he's going to be speaking at Safeco Field to a huge crowd. A huge crowd. Again, he spoke on Key Arena on Sunday and packed him in with at least 20,000 there. But there's going to be a march afterwards as well, so my comment today is, if the voters in Seattle could elect Bernie Sanders as president of the other Washington State, I think he'd be a shoo-in today, Jeff. It's going to be big, really big. I'm expecting tens and tens of thousands. Who knows how many? But after watching what he was able to pull in Spokane and especially in Portland, we know the numbers are going to be huge. And I will be writing about this at my blog at Daily Kos, and then I'll be tweeting live from Safeco Field with some video clips and commentary during the rally and his speech. So as a member of the executive committee of the King County Democrats told me yesterday, Larry Smith, Washington is a Bernie state. They're expecting huge numbers, and then there'll be a pro-Bernie Sanders march afterwards from the stadium into downtown to Westlake Park. So big day for Bernie.
Will he be marching? Will he be marching in that? Okay.
I don't know that. Well, I have not heard that.
That is quite unusual thing to have a march. I mean, first of all, for those who are not baseball fans, Safeco Field holds about 45,000 people. Mark, never mind those who can actually go on the field. So somewhere between 45 and 50,000 people. I mean, that is massive. If he can sell that out, that's just beyond anything that we have seen. I think his biggest crowd was about 28,000, if I'm not mistaken, in Portland. That was in the Pacific Northwest anyways, and maybe he had something in Los Angeles too that approached it. But he's now going to outdoor venues, and he's been selling out these arenas. I mean, I believe this is his first outdoor location, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of a sports stadium or ballpark, correct?
As far as I know, and luckily the weather is good in Seattle today. It's sunny for Bernie, so people are not going to have to stand around in the rain. But I was thinking that, while Hillary Clinton was charging $50,000 for private receptions earlier this week at Costco co-founder Brotman's home in Medina, while that was happening, Bernie Sanders volunteers were out making mass phone calls and knocking on thousands of doors, trying to mobilize this grassroots campaign in the state. So, and the turnout, yes, has been good in all over the Northwest. He was in Yakima as well, and
I saw that. Fascinating.
I think that
Go ahead, Mark.
Sanders, I think his stand on a lot of economic and social justice issues is really resonating with the folks here in the Northwest. And as I've reported before in your show, there are currently over 10,000 people without permanent residence in Martin Luther King Jr. County. And as I've said before, I don't think Dr. King would be proud of that fact. So when you have a candidate like Bernie Sanders who comes into town, who was in Seattle over a decade ago talking about affordable housing and rent control, I mean, he's just really resonating with the folks here. And it was also really fascinating to hear Jim Dean from Democracy for America talking earlier on the show about this risk that the Democratic Party could be relegated to what he called the hinterlands if the superdelegates don't support Bernie Sanders. And, you know, there's a good reason that former co-chair of the DNC, Tulsi Gabbard, stepped down from her position to support Bernie Sanders. As she so eloquently explained on your program, this is Bernie territory, and I think there's probably more excitement right now today for this event than there has been for any Mariners game in my recent memory. It's going to be big.
Yeah, since the days of Ken Griffey anyways, right? You know, it just seems to me that that he has really captured the mindset of the Pacific Northwest and Oregon and Washington State. Look, he did very well in crushing Secretary Clinton in Utah and Idaho. I mean, those are smaller states, but you know, that to me bodes very, very well for momentum as he maybe heads to Wisconsin for the April 5th primary there. You know, one of the things that people have talked about and some of the pundits in D.C. have opined on is, you know, where is this revolution? But it could very well be that the Pacific Northwest, which was the first couple of states, if you remember back in, what was it, June or July, when he went out there and started this group of you know, major 10,000, 20,000, 28,000, I think was the high number when he went from Los Angeles to Seattle and Portland, and not sure if he was in the Bay Area. But, you know, this to me, this is really his stronghold. So if there's anywhere where he is going to, you know, pull out new voters, independent voters, and win by a large margin, it seems to be that it's going to be in this place. I mean, is Secretary Clinton campaigning at all, you know, hard to keep the number down? Because, you know, I mean, she needs to sort of stop the momentum, which, you know, she's not going to counter it because she's kind of an establishment candidate. She's just going to say, well, I like Bernie, but we're going to do a little bit less. We're going to save more money. And we're just going to give you, you know, 2 pennies on the dollar kind of thing. Is that what we're seeing? Is that people who are really Bernie believers are there in Washington State and particularly in Seattle Metro, and they are coming out, and the campaign is finding more and more people to bring out because there's a lot of people who are not satisfied with the political process going on, whether it's going on in the state capitol in Washington State or whether it's going on in D.C.
Well, yes,
Your
we
thoughts?
also have a $2 billion debt and a constitutional crisis in Washington State over funding public education. So there's going to be a lot of teachers and students that are going to be at these events supporting Bernie Sanders for that reason. I really think that this idea, like you mentioned, that there's actually marches in Seattle. This is not the first one, Jeff. There's been a series of pro-Bernie Sanders marches, and they are like protest marches. People are very loud. They carry huge banners. The last one, the head banner was #MovementForBernie. There was somebody in the crowd who had a pet goat who had a Bernie Sanders sign on. I mean, it's just... It's like the old days of the Occupy Wall Street movement or the WTO demonstrations, where people actually consider a vote for Bernie Sanders a protest. They are demonstrating for a pro-democracy movement, and it goes way beyond your typical national or Democratic Party, Republican Party politics. This is a real grassroots movement that a lot of folks are involved with who are not even Democrats, who are out there supporting Bernie Sanders. So unprecedented. Also, in my memory, I've never seen a presidential political candidate have huge marches roaming through downtown in support of him or her. This is the first time I've ever seen that. And then also, there's this sense that supporting Bernie Sanders at this point is a protest both against the corporate mainstream media coverage, which seems to want to count him out and just want him, they just seem to want him to fold up and go away at this point. There's also this sense that the nomination process itself, which you've discussed thoroughly on your program, there's also a sense here that the process itself is rigged by some of the corporate members of the Democratic Party. So going out in the street and marching for Bernie Sanders is also a protest against party politics as usual as well. So you've got several dynamics happening, but I've never seen it before. I've never seen anyone out marching in the street for a U.S. presidential candidate. It's just new. It's
fascinating. It really is unique, and we hope it continues. As our friend Steven in California says, we've been waiting for this for 3 months now. We'll be right back. Continue the conversation with Mark Taylor-Canfield. You're tuned in to the Jeff Santos Show. "49 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show, talking to our good friend Mark Taylor-Canfield from the great city of Seattle, where today, just a few hours from now, Bernie Sanders will be speaking to a packed audience at Safeco Field. Again, folks, if you're not familiar with the baseball stadium, it holds about 45,000 people. The fact that he can get even close to that is pretty amazing. But this should be a big night and a big day tomorrow for Senator Sanders. I believe it's somewhere around 100 delegates, Mark, that are available. If he wins by 15 or 20 points, he could get a whole chunk of that, unless there is some kind of, once again, the insiders try to play the games like they did in New Hampshire, where he won by 22 points, yet the delegates were split 15 apiece, which to me is outrageous. Is there any of those concerns by the Sanders campaign that, he could win the popular vote by record numbers or by major numbers and end up with a smaller delegate count because of the way that it's handled? How is it handled in Washington State, the delegate give out?
Well, first of all, there are 101 delegates available, and it is done by a percentage of the vote. So if there are tie votes and there are odd numbers of delegates, the caucuses will have to go through some kind of a procedure to allocate those delegates. So if there's any shenanigans going on, it will be during the delegate vote counts, actually, which is starting tomorrow. They're asking people to show up at 9:45, 10 a.m., because it's sort of a long process for them to choose legislative district delegates as well. But I think from talking to the Bernie Sanders campaign folks in Washington State and Seattle, their attitude is this, Jeff. It's that we have to win big no matter where we win. We have to overcome any kind of margin of error or flipping cards or coins or rolling dice or whatever they choose to do, because
right.
They already feel like they're up against the institutional side of the Democratic Party, which really wants Hillary Clinton, and so of course they are going to, the leadership at least, they expect to favor Hillary Clinton. So that means that yes, they have to get twice as many people out as any other candidate, and they have to get twice as many delegate votes in order to show his strength in Washington State. But, the fact that he's been here twice in the last week shows that he considers this a very important state. And one of the things that he often talks about, in fact, I think one of his campaign ads is part of a clip is from a speech in Seattle at Key Arena, where he was saying that this sense of unity and diversity is something that Seattle has been known for a long time. And these innovative economic and social approaches to issues like $15 an hour minimum wage, the legalization of marijuana. So he sees Seattle as a place where he can speak from with a huge voice, because he's got so many people supporting him here. And I think, he's admitted that some of the activism and politics in Seattle has influenced his issue or his attitude on some of these issues as well. So it's a quid pro quo where he's got a lot of support here, and he's always been very supportive of the Northwest. As I said, he was here maybe a decade ago, when I can't remember now how long it's been since he was mayor of Burlington, Vermont. but he was here speaking about housing as a human rights issue, hosted by our city council members, Judy Nicastro, a long time ago. And considering the fact that, today the city of Seattle and Martin Luther King Jr. County have declared a civil emergency due to homelessness and the lack of affordable housing, that issue is also going to be something that is on people's minds as they listen to him speak about what's happening in the United States. Seattle is the perfect example of capitalism when it's very successful for a small group of people, but not so successful, or at least not so beneficial to a lot of the residents who have been living here all their lives. So there's a real close spirit alignment here between the two camps, the Seattle activists and the Seattle progressive political scene, and Bernie Sanders. He is the perfect candidate. Our city council members are nonpartisan races, so that's why we have an alternative socialist party member as city council member, and that's Shama Sawant. So folks like Mike O'Brien and Lisa Herbold and Nick Licata on our city council, Pramila Jayapal, the candidate for Jim McDermott's congressional seat, they've all endorsed Bernie Sanders very, very early in the game. When the rest of the Democrats were already endorsing Clinton so prematurely, they were at the same time supporting Bernie Sanders. So it's Bernie Sanders land. I really need to quote Larry Smith again from the executive committee of the King County Democrats, is that this is a Bernie Sanders state. Now, the eastern side of the state, and I think, Jim Dean mentioned this too, over there in Spokane and Yakima, Richland, the Tri-Cities areas, Wenatchee, that tends to be much more conservative. But it's long been the facts in Washington State that the politics on the west side of the state usually ruled only because of the demographics. There's so much more population on the west side of the Cascade Mountains in the Seattle-Tacoma metropolitan area than on the east side. That I think Bernie is a shoo-in in Washington State, and the enthusiasm that he's created and that he's benefiting from here, I think, is really helping his national campaign. You can see that his people here are very, very energized, and I think he's very, very energized and happy about speaking in Seattle today.
Talking with Mark Taylor-Canfield here on the Jeff Santos Show in our final minutes of the program. Let me ask you. I saw that Secretary Clinton had thanked Mayor Murray. Are there people in the city of Seattle that are very disgusted with the fact that their so-called progressive mayor has gone to the establishment, or is this just sort of a formality and he's really not, his heart is not into it?
Well, yes, I've heard some criticism of his position, but that's a historical thing in Seattle as well, where we tend to run activist mayors who then get elected because of their grassroots activism. Of course, Ed Murray was head of the Senate, the state Senate in our legislature, but he was seen as an activist sort of candidate and was very out front on things like same-sex marriage, legalization of marijuana, the $15 an hour minimum wage. So to see him then turn and support the mainstream Democrat, I think people here just see it as politics as usual, Jeff. We've seen it with other mayors as well, who run on a very progressive platform, and then once they are well ensconced on the throne in City Hall, they tend to change their opinions. But I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on the leadership in the city and the county to support the so-called mainstream Democratic candidate, and that's Hillary Clinton. Some of them have just been a little bit more brave, that's all, and stepped out ahead of the crowd to say, no, we're not going to go along with politics as usual. Seattle is the kind of place where people want new, innovative, progressive ideas. They don't want to go back to the old days.
Well, we will see. We will see tomorrow, my friend. Yes. And we will talk to you on Tuesday. Mark, all the best. Say hi to Bernie for me, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend and a happy Easter.
You too, Jeff. Okay, take care. See you soon.
See you soon. I want to thank Shane for producing this broadcast with help from Sarah Billingsley on the web. Of course, our great team of videographers, Gio and Freddie Santori on the video, and Jack Casey D. Simpson right here at Emerson College. Keep on fighting, folks. Keep your eye on Bernie this weekend for big wins in Hawaii, Washington State, and Alaska. We will see what happens next week. Have yourself a great weekend, a happy Easter. My name is Jeff Santos, and I gotta go.
It's a beautiful day. This girl is on fire.
Play it, Alicia. It is a Jeff Santos show, hour 2 of the program. Welcome to it, of course, the intro for the woman who's always on fire, for Bernie Sanders, for progressive causes. She is the one and only, this Bernie Sanders surrogate, the former Ohio State Senator. Our friend Nina Turner joins us on the line. You know, Alicia Keys is from New York. You're going to be in New York soon. We need to put you guys together. Happy Wednesday, Nina. How are you?
Dream come true. Thank you, Jeff. Dream come true to meet Alicia Keys.
Well, there we go. We're going to try to make that happen. We're going to try to make that happen.
Yeah.
We have some contacts. We'll see if we can make it happen. Well, big weekend to this past weekend for Senator Bernie Sanders, and 3 big wins. Poll numbers looking good in Wisconsin, up by 4 over Secretary Clinton, the Marquette poll that I mentioned earlier, and some national numbers looking good too. You must be a happy surrogate today.
I am very happy, but more happy for this country that we have a fighting chance to elect Senator Bernie Sanders. And as you were saying in your intro about him, with the combination that he is, that of JFK and FDR, I would even venture to throw a little Martin Luther King Jr. in there and a little Mother Teresa, if you don't mind.
Well, I agree. I would go for that. Don't mind at all. Look, I think that we're seeing this from a lot of people. This is a once-in-a-lifetime person who is willing to challenge the status quo, challenge the establishment. Where you have the other Democratic candidate running, who's having to take time out from the campaign to go raise money. You have a billionaire, racist who has his own money. And then you have Mr. Cruz, who's out there taking money from banking and Goldman Sachs and everybody else. And there's Governor Kasich, who's probably the best of the lot, which isn't saying much with all the money he gets from the fracking industry and everything else. So we have really a very unique time here. This is not something that comes along. It's not like 8 years ago. Barack Obama, as good as he has been on many issues, he had to take money from Wall Street. And I think that this really is the ultimate game changer here, because you don't have to worry about if someone gets elected that he's going to be tied to Wall Street. So if you want a better issue for civil liberties, you don't have to worry about these big corporations that are demanding information from you. You don't have to worry about if you want to protect the environment in Ohio or any other state because of the issues of big oil and big coal. You can go on and on down the line because it always ties back to Wall Street. Your thoughts, Nina?
It does, Jeff. And your point about really Senator Bernie Sanders is modeling how one can run a grassroots campaign, a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. It may be a slower goal, but this is a righteous goal. And the fact that his average donation is still $27, he's had 6 million different contributions to his campaign. It is a people-powered campaign, and he has done something that no other presidential candidate has done in the history of folks running for the presidency of the United States of America. And the only special interest that he will have to answer to, the people.
There you go. Nina Turner is our guest. You see her on the cable shows. She is, in my opinion, the best surrogate out there. And one of the things that has come up over the last couple of weeks is the ability to see the enthusiasm for Senator Sanders. I watched on MSNBC, and I thank them for giving the hour to Senator Sanders from Safeco Field. Now, I'm a big baseball fan. I watch the Mariners play. They usually play before half-empty stadiums. There were people waiting in line to go into Safeco Field, and there were people still outside when Bernie Sanders was talking to about 20,000 people. The camera didn't really do it justice because he was on one side of the ballpark, which you couldn't see to the behind him. But reporters who were there, who we've had on the show, have talked about this. This is something that, again, that doesn't happen. I understand Barack Obama had big crowds in 2008. I was at a couple of his rallies. But this, to me, shows the excitement that young people have. And I think that is so important. And it's, it's not going to obviously be translated just because he has and he can give it off to somebody else. He has struck a nerve. Talk to me about that, because you've been into these crowds. You have seen it. I saw you in Ohio get people revved up for Bernie Sanders in Columbus just a couple of weeks ago. Talk to me about them.
Yeah, it's everywhere, Jeff. It's palpable. I was just in Brooklyn where Senator Sanders was born and raised, and you talk about the biggest canvas in New York's history. Almost 2,000 people showed up for the grand opening of his office in his home borough of Brooklyn, New York. And when I tell you that the millennials outnumbered the 40-somethings and the 50-somethings and the 60-somethings by about 5-1. And when I talk to the millennials, both millennials who are old enough to vote and even those who are little younger, they talk about how they see the future in Senator Bernie Sanders' leadership, that he cares about us and he cares about our future. He is authentic. He is honest. My God. Out of the mouths of babes, as the Christian Bible teaches, they really are onto something there, Jeff. I'm telling you, those young kids, you talking about being on fire, they are on fire for Senator Bernie Sanders, and they really appreciate the model that he is pushing, one of uplift, one that says that we can have a country where universal health care is there for all. We can have a country where we increase the minimum wage. We can have a country that recognizes racial justice, that recognizes that we can no longer tolerate income inequality. All of those things are speaking to the young generation, and it's just all inspiring to see them latch on to the leadership and the vision of Senator Bernie Sanders.
Talking with Nina Turner here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join us, 772-925-8206. Once again, you mentioned young people, and it's young people who have been in the streets for Black Lives Matter. We have another case today in nearby Minnesota with the Clark. No justice there, no indictment going on. This is an issue, and look. Not saying that other folks can't deal with this issue. In the case of Secretary Clinton, and I know you've worked closely with Governor Kasich on these issues. But the fact is this. Yeah. Bernie Sanders connects with the people who are marching in the streets. I mean, he has a direct connection with this generation. They're the ones, the Black Lives Matter and other groups, that are leading this issue of police reform. And you're going to need constant connections, from the White House to the State House, to the streets. And it's Senator Sanders that I believe can connect the dots here better than almost any other candidate running for president today. Talk to me about this, because you've been involved in these issues, the Rice case and others.
Yeah, I have, Jeff, and you're absolutely right. I mean, Governor Kasich, to his credit, did create a task force to deal with these issues in Ohio of police brutality and overreach, to try to heal the divide between the community and the police, of which do need each other. But the African-American community and other communities that are plagued by this kind of behavior, they just want accountability and justice. They are not anti-police. But I will tell you that Senator Sanders, not only for his leadership of today, but for what he did in his 20s when he stood up against racism and discrimination. And let us not forget that he was a mayor of a city, and so he understands how vitally important having that type of relationship is. But the beauty about Senator Sanders is that he understands that he can't do it all alone, that he doesn't know everything, and he is going to have to be surrounded by people who can help in that way as well. That's why he always talks about this is about us. It is not about me. But, you know, to the extent that I met a group, a grassroots group, Jeff, and I'm hoping that you'll have them on the show someday, and they call Black Men for Bernie. And on their bus that they have wrapped with Senator Sanders' image is the image of not only his face, but the image of him being chained to an African-American woman in the 60s when he was a college student at the University of Chicago, being arrested for standing up against racism and segregation at the University of Chicago. And when I asked Black Men for Bernie, why do you guys organize? Grassroots organized on their own. Black men from all over this country organized and said, we will stand up and with Senator Bernie Sanders. They pointed to that picture and they said, this is his street credibility right here. He gets it. He has heart-soul agreement, Jeff. He does.
There's no doubt, and we actually had one of the representatives on last week, Nina, you know, and we'll do it again because we know they're going to be in New York. We're looking to be in New York as well, and I'm understanding that Nina Turner will be in New York. There you go.
I will.
We will meet up, my friend. Talking with Nina Turner here on the Jeff. We're right back with Nina Turner. You're tuned in to the Jeff Santos Show. Welcome back. It is the Jeff Santos Show, 23 minutes past the hour. The Rolling Stones here in the afternoon on the program. As we talked about earlier, folks, for those of you joining us from FSTV and MNN and others around the country on the JeffSantosShow.com website, want to play the sound from Susan Sarandon the other night from Chris Hayes. As I said, there are people here who cannot be transferable to Secretary Clinton. And again, why is it that people are not asking the other question, will Secretary Clinton supporters support Mr. Sanders if he's the winner? Let's play that one more time for our new audience, Shane.
Come to despise Hillary Clinton or reject Hillary Clinton, and that should she be the nominee, which is as yet undetermined, they will walk away.
That's a legitimate concern because they're very passionate and very principled.
But isn't that crazy? If you believe in what he believes in?
Yeah, but she doesn't. She's accepted money from all those people. She doesn't even want to fight for a $15 minimum wage. So these are people that have not been, that have not come out before. So why would we think they're going to come out now for her? You know,
you really think that?
I think there's a good possibility. I talk to people who either want to write. I talk to Republicans who have written him in already. You know, and they just feel like she's not authentic, that she's a liar, that they don't trust her, so what difference does it make? You know, if you're a small farmer and you're fracking on your property, in Idaho they just passed a bill where they can frack on private land, and you know that she's taken money from fracking, why would you think that she's going to have your back?
Well, because they make the argument.
Exactly. Let's hold it right there, actually. It goes on to say that, other people have taken money. Yeah, and other people have not done justice to these issues, Nina Turner. And, it is indeed, unfortunately, current presidents and former presidents, are in that category. And look, I mean, it's not transferable. Your thoughts on what Susan had to say?
No, it's not, Jeff. And, people are only going to go so far. Again, the beauty of what Senator Bernie Sanders is saying is that in modeling his campaign by not taking that kind of money, he's saying, I'm going to win this race on my terms. I'm going to run my campaign on my terms. And the fuel for me is going to be my pure, unadulterated loyalty and allegiance to the uplift of the citizens of this country, period. And, it just really pains me how folks are trying to vilify Susan Sarandon for being honest. The last time I checked, this is the United States of America, and people have a right to have a flippant opinion. She gave her opinion, period. And she didn't tell anybody to go vote for Mr. Trump. She wasn't advocating for Mr. Trump. She was having an honest moment on TV. And I thought that's what people wanted, honesty. And it's just ridiculous how people online, on Twitter in particular, Facebook, are going in on Susan Sarandon for no reason at all. She just talked about her experience. I myself have met people as I've traveled across this country who have just this amazing passion for Senator Sanders. They're not connected to the Democratic Party. The reason why they're in this process is because of Senator Bernie Sanders, period. Now, am I saying the overwhelming majority of people who support him feel that way? No, but we have to acknowledge that there are folks out there who only want to see him become the president of the United States of America. And if he is not the nominee, it is the job of the secretary and others who support her to help earn those folks' votes. They're not going to automatically go that way. And we should not. This is not about party. This is about people. This is about changing the dynamics of America so it helps the working poor and the middle class. And you know what? Einstein defined insanity, and it's doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, Jeff. People are tired of it. They are fed up. And that is why Senator Bernie Sanders is surging so high with the millennials, because they have a BS meter, you know, and they don't take well to bull. They know where honesty and integrity comes from. They get it, and they're just over it. And there's a lot of people who are over it in this country, period. That's all she was saying.
Look, when half the population doesn't vote, when 18 to 20-year-olds come out, 18 to 24-year-olds come out in 2008 and had hoped for hope and change, and we didn't get hope and change, and that's why they didn't come out in 2010. The Republicans control the House and Senate and make it harder for people to win a congressional seat in your great state of Ohio because of that, because people see the BS. And, you know, you can go on the internet today. Maybe you couldn't, 25 years ago, and they can see what has happened. And, I mean, that's why Susan Sarandon is correct, and a lot of people feel that way. Look, this is not a country club. The Democratic Party is not a club you belong to, you pay a membership, and, and everybody has to support, the president of the club. This is real issues.
Yes.
Exactly.
You have to convince people to vote for you. Is not an automatic. And yes, Chris Hayes asked him, is that crazy? Is it insane? Well, you know what? Mr. Trump has won some votes across this country, period. They haven't been all men. Some of them were women. People question, well, what type of woman would vote for Mr. Trump? Well, I don't know. But you know what? That is their right. Do I agree with them? Absolutely not. Am I going to vilify them? Absolutely not. What it is our job to do in a democracy is to convince people, to try to win them over, not to believe that somehow we own their vote or that they owe it to us to vote for us because we believe that we have the better ideas. No, those votes are not transferable for some people in this country who really believe very deeply in what Senator Bernie Sanders is fighting for, and they don't believe that anybody else can do it. Now, can they be won over?
That's right.
Maybe, but you got to do it.
We'll see. Nina Turner, keep on fighting. Keep on being on fire. We'll talk to you soon. All the best, my friend. Oh, the great sound of Marvin Gaye here on the Jeff Santos Show. 34 minutes past the hour. Of course, when we hear that music on this program, there is somebody to follow that show. We don't play it for anybody else. And that, of course, is the great reporter and journalist for the Amsterdam News, the fantastic professor at City College and a regular here every Wednesday on the Jeff Santos, the one and only Herb Boyd. Herb, the words of Marvin Gaye once again, and tragically again, are in the news and so real as Marvin Gaye sang about it some 50 years ago. How are you, sir?
No doubt about it. Jeff, so much so, tragically appropriate.
It is. We start with what, again, no charges brought in the Clark case, and we have a presidential candidate that today is talking to his campaign manager, twisting the arm of a reporter. This just never stops. And the violence that we saw in the 1960s, is here in 2016, and it doesn't look like it's going away, both in terms of police and in terms of politics. Your thoughts on the news of the day, my friend?
Exactly. And, Jeff, in terms of, they talk about punishment, yeah, but some of these police officers need to face some kind of punitive measures. It's becoming absolutely increasingly exasperating to to say that we're not surprised at an outcome when a young unarmed black man is shot and killed by a police officer in this country. That begins to speak volumes to, where we are as a people and where the criminal justice system is, in fact. So here again, we go back to Mir Rice in Cleveland, 12-year-old kid, toy gun, gunned down. Mm-hmm. Michael Brown in Ferguson, where cops are not at all indicted. I mean, there's no criminal charges. There's not even a grand jury in some cases. And then when you do have a grand jury, it doesn't mean anything at all. They're not transparent. They tend to not bring back a decision that's favorable at all to the victims of these incidents. It's all absolutely wordless in terms of what can be said and what can be done. And then you have, on top of that, all of these incidents are exacerbated by a political president who seems to be totally out of sorts, with the realities of this country.
Right. I mean, it's like we're living in 1950s. And the world is it the leave it to Beaver, father knows best. I was talking with somebody about this morning, and, he uses the word television like it's some kind of new instrument. We're in 2016. And, it has been around for a long time, but I think Donald Trump wants to take us back to the world of black and white and a place where women would wear high heels and an apron. I mean, this is his version of where he wants to go, make America great again. Yeah, I mean, if that's where he wants to take us back, there's a whole heck of a lot of people who are going to be in line to sort of say, if that's where we're going, you're going to be the first one out of the country, because this is now out of control. I mean, where are we going with this?
Well, again, you're talking about the what you call the archbishop. I shouldn't even use that word. I should say the spokesperson for retrenchment in this country. He not only is interested in, and interestingly enough, though, Jeff, you have this television thing, and he has, in a very, very manipulative way, utilized television. I mean, here's a guy,
that's right,
the deal maker, right? You know, and how he has really manipulated, particularly some of the Fox News and these reporters who refuse to put his feet to the fire. So we got to have some complicit, to some extent, out of media. He has played the media, and it's something he understands very well, perhaps better than anything else about him. He seems to know how to keep his name and his image out there in the media to his benefit. I mean, he's a billionaire who's not spent a nickel probably in any promotion, in any advertising.
I think he spent like $35 million in comparison to $250 million that Jeb Bush spent, and Bush got 5% of the vote. I mean, it's just a joke and a half. But
there, baby.
Yeah, exactly, not at all. Talking with our good friend Herb Boyd here on the Jeff Santos Show. Phone number to join us 772-925-8206. Look, I mean, we are at a point right now where, the Republican Party wants no part of Mr. Trump. They're getting behind Cruz, because even though Cruz reminds me of Joe McCarthy, it's reincarnated. They want to use him to get to Trump, so they can try to figure out a way to get to somebody else. I don't know if it's Kasich or Ryan or somebody else to Cleveland. And everything is going to go through Cleveland, and we're going to make some kind of new hodgepodge of the Republican Party. But, Donald Trump has been basically, that was the seed that was planted during the Reagan administration. That was the seed that was planted under George W. Bush and Newt Gingrich. This is not something that just, all of a sudden popped up, like a rotten flower, over the last 6 months. This has been growing for a while, and you have seen it. You have seen the whether it's Rudy Giuliani and his tactics in Harlem and in other places where people of color preside and how they are sort of second-class citizens. We have seen it in a whole slew of ways. And, Trump just seems to be the loudest circus master and who doesn't care what comes out of his mouth because, he's so rich he doesn't have to worry about it.
Not at all. You're absolutely right, Jeff, in terms of looking at the development, the evolution of this very, very tragic situation we're encountering now. He's the most recent iteration, the most recent incarnation of some of the worst things about our government, about our country. And that he can invoke these things and have such a large mass of people who agree with him, that makes it all the more deleterious, all the more concern for us in this country. One of these people, we thought that he was a big joke to begin with. But we're discovering that maybe the joke is on us.
Yes. And it's on a lot of TV executives, too. See, this is the problem, we have with corporate media. And, thank God for outlets like FSTV and MNN and others that give you the opportunity to speak to the public. Because look at the fact that this is the only candidate I can remember that can do an interview from his pajamas. We have no idea who is in the room with him, giving him information, talking to him and giving him talking points, even though the only thing he really talks about is that Cruz sucks and that his wife is got a lot of problems and that, every other person that is out there is a no-good liar, and he's the only one that's great. I mean, that's what you really get out of these interviews.
Jeff,
there's no policy.
Jeff, he's simply amazing.
Yeah.
Beat the head. He's gonna break his arm patting himself on the back.
That's the way he'll break arms. All right.
Right.
Look, it is a sad day in 2016. This is how we cover elections. It's bad enough that we have the horse race, poll after poll, who's up, who's down, and we don't get into any issues that Senator Sanders or Secretary Clinton is talking about. We end up, with who's up, who's down, and, whether Trump is making fun of Cruz today, Kasich tomorrow, or Bush yesterday. That's what it's about. We're back with Herb Boyd. We'll be right back. Hold your thoughts right there. It's the Jeff Santos Show. You're watching FSTV. We'll be right back after this timeout. Welcome back. It is the Jeff Santos Show. The great U2. Of course, talking about that horrible day in April in Memphis, Tennessee. Shots rang out at the Memphis Hotel of Martin Luther King that day. Again, the violence that we see in this country continues, Herb Boyd. And when we hear that great tune of a band from Ireland, I consider maybe the best band in the world, that haunting time of April 4, 1968, you think that we can grow from those times. And, we in the media have a responsibility to report the news. And what happened the other day when a reporter ends up almost having her arm pulled off the socket by the campaign manager of Donald Trump is not the way to have a free press. I've had my dealings with President Obama, but I give him credit yesterday in talking about the need for a true free press. The fact is that if we're intimidated, Mr. Trump knows the head of Comcast. He knows the head of the FOX network. He knows the head of CBS and so forth, because these are people he plays golf with, that he has cocktails with. And the people who are his editor, who are the editors, people who are the reporters, they're small people for Donald Trump. And and Miss Fields, the woman who got her socket pulled out, by Corey. I mean, this is how I think he looks at this. Don't worry about it. These are small people. Why didn't she yell? And I think we need to really understand this as journalists and talk show hosts and others. That you cannot have this kind of treatment by people who are running for president, who are in politics of any sort, by police, by Secret Service, etc. Your thoughts?
Jeff, and I think that particular attitude and behavior and the kind of condoning the activities of people who are working with him as either security or as publicists or campaign managers or what have you, if he has that kind of an attitude about people in the media, what does he feel about just ordinary people out there? And of course, we've seen how some of the black people in particular who show up at his events, heaven only knows why, almost risking their lives to do so. But with Michelle Fields, we're journalists, so we can identify and empathize, what happened to her. But to hear him on television the other day beginning to justify and explain and said that, Lewandowski, he really didn't do that. She was the provocateur. She was the one who provoked that action.
Right.
So
because she supposedly likes the guy.
Exactly. Then we showed a video of that. In the same way, we kind of look for videos in the case of a Jamar Clark, up in Minneapolis. You try to say that, we got a video of the situation, and you shows that he was not handcuffed. I'm still waiting to see how they could make that determination on the video that they show. I mean, I couldn't make any sense at all out of it. I don't know if you saw it, Jeff. But
no, I couldn't make any sense either. It's selected video is what it is.
Yes. But I think that it goes to show you, even when you talk about what happened with Michelle Fields, and even that's inconclusive. You try to see, well, looks like somebody reached him. We certainly saw him grab a young man by the cuff of his shirt and snatch him back. That was clear. So he will put he had people in his campaign team who were putting their hands on people. And certainly the marks that Michelle had on her arm, someone grabbed her and did something very, very vicious to her. So he can't explain that away. But, of course, he'll try to do that because he's got that kind of gumption.
Well, the point is that, when you have this mentality, is that it's us against them. And the mentality is that we're going to fight you literally. This is, don't forget, this is a guy, and we all know about wrestling being fake, but this is a guy who actually went after Vince McMahon. And there's video of him, trying to punch him. Now, again, it's wrestling or wrestling, but the fact is that this is the guy that plays in that arena. So this is what we're going to expect. If somebody, a White House reporter asked a question, what's going to happen? They're going to be taken out and, given 15 lashes? I mean, if he doesn't agree with the question?
Well, you have someone who seems to be on his way, and we hope not, to the bully pulpit, because that would be appropriate for the bully. Because
you got that right.
He's absolute bully, and he does it verbally, and I think potentially he can do it. He will do it physically. If he doesn't do it himself, you'll have a goon squad, to carry out any kind of activity or any kind of correction or apprehension that he wants, and people will be glad to do it too.
Well, look, you have people who need jobs. If he's going to offer a job that pays $20 an hour to rough up people, there'll be plenty of people applying. And there's racism in this country. There's sexism in this country. And, if he wants to, he'll pay people. He's got enough money to do it. to go out there and make it bad for people, and and intimidate them to be on his side. I mean, this guy doesn't understand the understanding of being professional. He talks about the fact that he went to this great school and so on and so forth. I mean, I really don't care if he was an A student or a C student. The fact is that, when you don't have any understanding of foreign policy, when you don't have any understanding of domestic policy, when you want to say you want to give health care people because they're not going to be in the streets, and you don't believe in single payer and you want to privatize everything, we've seen where that has gone. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. I got 60 seconds, Herb. Wrap it up for me.
So what we're talking about, Jeff, all things considered, is that all we want is a decent human being, someone with dignity and respect for others. You can have any kind of philosophical and political views in the world, but can you be a decent human being and treat people, in a sense of humanity and dignity, without being the bully, without being the ruffian, without being this your kind of individual who has no concern whatsoever for the others. So that's all I want from him. It could be anything else you want.
I agree. I don't know if we're going to get it, though, Herb. Yes, exactly. Herb Boyd, thank you, sir. Thank you for watching on MNN and FS TV. This is the Jeff Santos Show. I got to go.